Well, welcome back. We find ourselves here once again at the beginning of a new book, and I am excited to have found something a little different for us. Not not completely different, a little different, little similar to Matilda. We'll see. I had never heard of this book until I walked by it and saw it on the shelf at the bookstore. It is called Fuzzy, written by Tom Engelberger and Paul Dellinger. And it is a story about a student in school, a lot like Matilda. However, it is also about a robot at that school, so a little less like Matilda. So, we will dive right in. Oh, yes, and interesting. So this book is broken up into 17 chapters, so we'll do the same thing, chapter a week. But the chapters are broken up into little, like, mini sections, so I'm just going to bulldoze all the way through each little mini section of all the 17 chapters at a time. So, here we go. This is Fuzzy, chapter 1.1, entitled Hallway B. "Oh, big whoop, Maxine," said Christy. "Another robot." Max made a sound somewhere between a sigh and a growl. First of all, Max didn't like being called Maxine, and Christy knew it. Second of all, Max hated this new trend of using 50-year-old slang like big whoop and awesome, bro, and Christy knew it. And most of all, Max loved robots, and Christy knew that too. So Christy was pretending she wasn't interested in the biggest news of all time. Today was the day that the robot integration program started. There had been a lot of hype about it, and even some news coverage. Their school, Vanguard Middle, was getting the first ever robot student anywhere. Ever. I mean, it was a big whoop, at least in Max's opinion. Now Max was walking the halls before school started, hoping to see the robot in action. Unfortunately, Christy was not just slowing Max down, but also driving her crazy. "Seriously," continued Christy, "this school is already mega overrun with robots. Janitors, lunch ladies, librarians, all robots." "Christy," said Max, "it's not just another robot. This is an artificially intelligent, If it's already so smart, then why is it going to school?" asked Jack Biggs, who had come up behind them. This time Max definitely growled. It was bad enough listening to Christy, who was supposedly her best friend, but Biggs was basically her best enemy. He always tried to hang around them, but then constantly picked on them, especially Max. It was maddening. "Yeah," said Christy, who tolerated Biggs much better than Max did. "It's supposed to be this big deal, super smart robot, and it has to take 7th grade math?" "Well, even geniuses like myself have to take 7th grade math at some point," said Biggs. "Hey, where are you guys going?" said Jack's sidekick Simeon as he approached them. "Oh, Maxine is totally on the hunt for that robot," said Christy. She gave the back of Max's head an affectionate tap with her ever-present Max sketchbook. "Yeah, it's her best chance of getting a boyfriend," said Biggs. "Why me?" thought Max. "Why do the 3 weirdest kids in the whole school always hang around me?" But deep down, Max had to admit that she felt closer to these 3 than anybody else at the school. And she realized that she herself might very well be the 4th weirdest. Then she saw a commotion up ahead. The robot must be up there. She moved faster. She didn't want the others to ruin this moment, and she wasn't going to let a gaggle of onlookers get in the way. Sure, everyone wanted to see the robot, but she wanted to see it more, so she zigged and zagged through the swarm of kids to get a look. And there it was, the robot, walking right toward her. It looked absolutely ridiculous. It was only a little taller than Simeon, and he was the shortest kid at Vanguard. And it was dressed in boys' clothes, at least 5 years out of style, and was wearing a dark wig. And its face was kind of creepy. The features were all there, but different. The bright blue eyes never blinked. The eyebrows looked as though they were painted on. The mouth was a closed, straight line, and the nose was formed by straight planes that made its tip look pointed. A lot of people were laughing at it, but Max thought, well, that's just the way they dressed it. It can't help what it looks like. The most important thing is that this is one of the most advanced robots on the planet, and it's right here where I can. And then it fell over. Max actually had to jump back so it didn't land on her foot. Clomp! It must weigh a ton, she realized. It would have crushed her toes. And then it just lay there, frozen, completely still, bricked. Nice work, said Biggs, catching up from behind. You already broke it, Max. Chapter 1.2, Hallway B. The robot did appear to be broken. It just lay there like a big toy someone had dropped, and somehow she felt like it might be her fault. Can this day get any worse, she wondered. Then the walls lit up. The computer-generated face of Vice Principal Barbara looked down on them from every angle. Vice Principal Barbara was the school's supercomputer. She ran everything and kept an electronic eye on everything as well. And when she needed to communicate with the students, she had an on-screen avatar which looked just like a grandmother, a sort of crazy grandmother. Sometimes friendly, sometimes stern, sometimes angry, and often flipping between those modes when least expected. Right now, she was in what Biggs called grumpy grandmother mode, to which Simeon had added, "You mean Big Brother's grumpy grandmother." But they didn't say these things in school, where Barbara might hear them, of course. "Please keep the hallways clear and safe," Barbara said, the mouth of her avatar slightly out of sync with her words. "No stopping is allowed in the hallways. Clear the way." "But Vice Principal Barbara," said Max, "the robot just fell down and—" "Discipline tags will be assigned in 5 seconds," said Barbara. "Proceed to homeroom. Please keep the hallways clear and safe." Christy, Biggs, Simeon, and the other students immediately headed to class, though many craned their necks to look back at Max and the dead robot. "But," said Max. "Discipline tag assigned to student M. Zalaster," said Barbara. "Has it been 5 seconds already?" wondered Max. But she knew better than to wonder out loud, because that would probably just get her an additional D-tag. She looked down at the still robot, reluctant to leave it. Maybe she could help. "Don't touch it," called a voice. Max looked up to see 3 adults running down the hall, robotics technicians. Max was dying to ask them questions. "No running is allowed in the hallways at any time for any reason," boomed Barbara, switching into really stern grandma mode. "Discipline tags assigned to school visitor number 5, school visitor number 8, school visitor number 11. Your violation of school rules will be reported to your employer, Rossum Technologies. Additional discipline flag assigned to student M. Zalaster. Clear the hallways. Please keep the hallways clean and safe." Max didn't stick around to hear the rest. She headed for class before she got hit with any more D-tags. She already had way too many. 1.3, Homeroom. "Oh man," said Biggs. "Goodbye, robot integration program. I told you anything with the initials RIP was doomed. Rest in peace, RIP. "Yes," thought Max, "you did tell us that about 50 times. "Those technicians look pretty mad," said Simeon. "Yeah," said Christy. "They came running up. 'Don't touch it, don't touch it.' They think you were going to give it mouth to mouth or something?" "Yeah," repeated Biggs, way too loud as usual. And then Max goes. Luckily, Max didn't have to hear anymore, because a tone sounded over the loudspeakers. Their desks lit up, and their science and homeroom teacher, Miss French, said, "Now, I know there was a lot of excitement in the hall this morning, but we can't let that get us off track. This week's upgrade test is just around the corner, whether there's a robot in school or not. I suggest you use your homeroom time to review." Ugh, thought Max. Reviewing for an upgrade test was about the last thing she wanted to do. But sometimes it felt like it was the only thing she ever did. The tests were in every class, every week, and you had better make sure your upgrade level never went down. Everything at this school was focused on upgrading. It was all part of a new federal school board program called Constant Upgrade, although the students had their own name for it. The Constant Upgrade program was supposed to be a revolution in education with cutting-edge technology, like Barbara. But it had turned out to mostly be a giant pain in the butt. The cutting-edge technology was always yelling at you, And with the constant testing, none of the classes were any fun. Since teachers got their own constant upgrade scores, all they seemed to care about was preparing for the next test. And making it all even worse, parents received constant updates on everything their kids did, from test scores to D-tags. Bomb a test or do something dumb, and Barbara would be sure your parents heard about it in real time. Vanguard did have a human principal, Mr. Dorgas, but everyone whispered actually, that Barbara was really in charge. And they were right. She wasn't just running the school. She was the school. Everything, every door, every camera, every screen, every sensor was connected into the central computer running the Barbara software. All the janitor and lunchroom robots were under her control, plus dozens of other robots the students never saw, such as Q-screen repair bots, heating duct cleaners, dumpster droids, all rolling around on wheels or treads, and mostly consisting of metallic appendages designed for their specific functions. The goal of Constant Upgrade was a perfect school, higher test scores, fewer discipline problems, and cheaper to run. Every part of the school must be constantly upgrading: the students, the teachers, the learning materials, the robots, the flow of traffic in the halls, attendance, physical education achievements, proper hand washing in the restrooms. Barbara gave everything a constant upgrade score, and that score needed to keep going up. Anything other than a constant upgrade in your constant upgrade score meant trouble. Every student's score was recalculated in real time. Attendance, discipline, citizenship points were added or subtracted instantly. Homework was graded by computer, and student scores were adjusted within the first minute of class. And once a week came those live upgrade assessments. They were really just multiple choice tests, but they had a big and immediate impact on every student's score, and on the teacher's scores too. And it was working. Vanguard was exceeding all of the goals. Academic test scores were way up, actually the highest of any school in Florida, and discipline problems were way down, in fact, almost non-existent. Although Vanguard still had human teachers and a human principal, the Barbara system kept finding ways to replace more and more of the school staff, saving even more money. Already there were plans to open up another constant upgrade school with their own Barbara system. But because the students under the constant upgrade system were constantly being upgraded, according to Barbara, at least. Suspicious. 1.4. Max's house. Constant upgrade. Oh. Never mind the sirens. Constant upgrade didn't just cause Max trouble at school. The computer system's instant communication with her parents often meant that she'd come home to find them all worked up about something that was really nothing. And today was no exception. Dawn and Carmen Zalaster had received texts about Max's 2 discipline tags, along with a reminder that Max needed to study for the weekly upgrade test. So she tried to explain the whole scene with the robot to her parents, but that just made it worse, because her mother did not share Max's interest in robots. In fact, ever since she and their city's other police dispatchers had lost their jobs to computerized communication systems, she had become very anti-computer, anti-robot, and Max thought anti-everything. Now she was working at a small local library, downloading ebooks for its patrons, at least until some robot took over there too. "I don't understand it," Carmen Zalaster said. "You just step over the robot, and you go to class. End of story. No discipline tags. How hard is that? I couldn't just leave him there." "Him? Honey, robots aren't hims," Max's mom said, clearly struggling to hold on to her patience. "They aren't hers, they're machines. And if people start treating them like people, then we're really screwed. I mean, just today, I was reading about that failed Mars mission. The robot crashed the ship, and it was lucky there were no people aboard, because listen, they don't treat us like people. We're nothing more than just another machine to them, and once they're in charge, do we have to go into this again? Dawn Zalaster interrupted quietly. It's important, said Max's mom. I know it is, but so is her test on Friday. If she does as badly as she did last week, her score is going to drop again, and she's really going to be in trouble. She sure is, agreed her mom. Maxine, So that's why? She needs to go study, said her dad. And Max was grateful. She didn't know how to talk to her mom about anything anymore, and her test scores were a particularly touchy subject. I mean, she had studied for her test last week and the one before it, and she thought she'd done pretty well on them. She couldn't understand the poor performances. But whenever Max tried telling that to her mother, she would just get angry and snap, "Well, you better figure it out." Well, there is the end of chapter 1 point... whatever that was. 1 point something. 1. We'll just call it chapter 1. Alright, so there's chapter 1. Next week, chapter 2.1, Hallway B again. And we'll find out what's going on back at school. Interesting. There's all kinds of strange things happening. I guess this takes place in the future? I didn't really get that. I mean, of course, it takes place in the future because there's robots, but there's also robotic principles, so kind of sci-fi a little bit. I'm cool with that. Anyway, there's the end of that. And I'll see you next week. Until then, it's time for bed. And so, bye-bye.